Good afternoon. I'd like to call the December 14th, 2021 last meeting of the year to order. This is Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. I would like to start by reading our closed caption disclaimer. Closed captioning is being provided by Zoom solely for the convenience of our viewers. Zoom closed captioning may not always translate accurately due to limitations of the machine-generated service. Everett Public Schools does not review for accuracy and makes no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy, reliability, timeliness, or completeness of any information that appears in a closed caption. Now, Director Lassane will read our land acknowledgement.
It is my honor to. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Coast, Salish, Snohomish, and Tulalip peoples. We express our deepest respect and gratitude to the ancestors of this land on whose shoulders we stand. In Everett Public Schools, we strive to create equitable outcomes and build a culture of inclusive belonging for all students, teachers, staff, and community.
Thank you. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the Secretary please call the roll?
President Mason,
Present.
Vice President Lassane,
Present.
Director Nichols,
Present.
Director Mitchell,
Present.
Director Berg,
Present.
Student Representative Colley,
Present.
Student Representative Pilch-Bassan.
Thank you. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Salzman, may you please review our agenda for tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to the public. Tonight's agenda contains the following: a segment for the annual board organization, a segment for recognitions, the superintendent's report, a segment for board comments, a segment for public comments, a segment for routine business, a segment for information discussion, a segment for unfinished business, a segment for new business, upcoming agenda items, and an executive session. Since publishing the agenda, the following was made to the agenda. Item 8.01, the superintendent's report, the presentation was added. And item 11.02, approval of the personal report, the report was updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Directors, as part of the agenda tonight, we have an executive session. I would like to suggest that we move our executive session to the beginning of the meeting for a quick briefing. Is there a motion to move item 17.01, executive session, to follow item 5.01, adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The motion carries. With that, the executive session will now be moved to follow the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. The agenda is adopted as revised. Will the Secretary please revise the agenda online? If you refresh your screens, you will see the revised agenda. We will now move to item 6.01, executive closed session. We will adjourn for, Darlene, how long are we? Oh. Okay. Tonight, the board will hold an executive session to hear an update from legal counsel about potential litigation involving the district. At this time, the regular meeting is recessed for approximately 3 minutes to be reconvened in executive session in the Silver Lake Room for approximately 10 minutes. No action may be taken during an executive session.
And I confirm I'm going to mute and turn off my video, but keep the Zoom link on.
Yes.
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 Can someone confirm they can hear me again?
The door, yeah, over here. You know that thing that we can go like this?
Yes, yeah, we're doing
Superintendent Renee.
But we do have one of these. It works for the stairs going to the garage.
Oh, they're all good, remember that.
We'll have a few minutes.
Wait, anyhow. What time are we reconvening? When did we?
We got 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah.
We left here at 5:07.
They have coffee.
I would like to go ahead and reconvene our regular meeting. We will now move on to item 7.01, annual organizational meeting, or administration oath of offices. I would like to welcome Senator June Robinson and thank her on behalf of the Board of Directors and the district for being here to administer the oath of office, and a personal thank you since it's my oath that she has come to administer.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Caroline Mason, do solemnly swear
I, Caroline Mason, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties
and I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties
of the office of Everett School District Number 2,
of the office of Everett School District Number 2,
Director at Large, Position 3,
Director at Large, Position 3,
for a 6-year term,
for a 6-year term,
according to law, to the best of my ability.
according to law, to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then I'm not sure how.
How do we do this?
I'll do Zoom.
Yeah, Tracy.
Will this work if I stand here?
Yes.
Tracy, are you ready?
Yes, but I can't see her.
Oh,
I think once she starts talking, the thing will flip.
Okay.
raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. Is that better? Are you seeing me now?
Yes.
There, okay. I, Tracy Mitchell, do solemnly swear
I, Tracy Mitchell, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties
perform and discharge the duties
of the office of Everett School District Number 2, Director at Large, Position 4.
of
Okay, we'll go
Everett,
back. The duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Everett School District Number 2,
of Everett School District Number 2,
Director at Large, Position 4,
Director at Large, Position 4,
for a 6-year term,
for a 6-year term,
according to law, to the best of my ability.
according to law, to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and thank you for being here.
That's pretty cool. Not official until she signs on the line.
Okay, with those signatures completed, we'll go ahead and move forward. Now we're moving on to item 7.02, administration, election of board president. This is the time when we vote in officers for the coming year. The first officer position that we elect is board president. I'd like to call for nominations for the office of president to serve during the coming year. Well, I'll kick things off. I'd like to nominate Director Pam Lassane for the role, my trusty vice president for the past 2 years, for the role of board president.
Second.
I'll
Not
third.
It's not required at this time. Are there any other additional nominations? Hearing none, we are going to proceed to a roll call vote.
President Mason,
Director Pam Lassane.
Vice President Lassane,
You have to vote for yourself. It's awkward, I know.
Director Lassane.
Director Nichols,
Director Lassane.
Director Mitchell,
Director Lassane,
Director Berg.
Director Lassane.
Okay. I'd like to congratulate Director Pam Lassane as our new board president.
What? You didn't say yes?
Here, Pam.
Oh, That's too quick, Caroline. That's too quick.
It's all you.
That's too quick. Oh, my gosh.
I remember this happening to me, and it was a little overwhelming at first.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. So our next item of business is 7.03, which is election of the board vice president. I would like to call for the nomination for the office of vice president to serve during the coming year. I'd like to kick it off. I mean, if you want to kick it off, I'd like to nominate Director Mitchell for vice president, if that's okay with Director Mitchell.
It'd be my pleasure. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? If there are no additional nominations, let's proceed to the roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
President Lasane,
Director Mitchell.
Director Mason,
Director Tracy Mistral.
Director Nichols,
Director Mitchell.
Director Mitchell,
Director Mitchell?
Director Berg.
Director Mitchell.
By a unanimous vote, Director Tracy Mitchell has been elected to the position of Vice President. Our next item on the businesses is item 7.04, which is the election of the board parliamentarian. I would like to call for a nomination for the office of parliamentarian to serve during the coming year.
May I nominate Director Berg?
You may.
If she's allowed to do it based on her other role.
Okay, may I make a nomination?
May.
May I nominate Director Mason?
Director Mason. Well, are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? If there are no additional nominations, let's proceed to the roll call vote.
Madam President, may I have a point of order?
Go right ahead, Director Berg.
Madam President, may I withdraw my nomination with all due respect to Director Mitchell and with all due honor, but I would like to withdraw my nomination.
Thank you for that. Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
So therefore, Director Berg has withdrawn her nomination for board parliamentarian. We now have one nominee for board parliamentarian, and that would be Director Mason. Is that correct? Are there any other nominations? Let's proceed to the vote.
President Lasane,
Director Mason.
Vice President Mitchell,
Oh, Director Mason.
Director Mason,
Director Mason.
Director Nichols,
Director Mason.
Director Berg.
Director Mason.
By unanimous vote, Director Caroline Mason has been elected to the position of parliamentarian. We have to clap. Oh, fantastic. So our officers have now been elected for the new coming year. We will move to the next order of business, which is item 8.0, recognition.
Oh, it's 8.0, I didn't refresh.
Right, refresh your screen. My screen just went dead. Board of Directors have, as Board of Directors, we have a recognition that we would like to make. I'm asking Director Caroline Mason to come forward and make that recognition.
Yes, ma'am.
and as your board chair for the past 2 years, I am honored today to bestow upon you the game ball for your unerring leadership since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic in March of 2020. Wait. Now, you have navigated uncharted waters, made decisions without prior precedent, and brought our district through a difficult time with compassionate leadership that puts students first and keeps people's health top of mind. Now, this is not your typical football, in that it's not signed by the school board. This football has a special signature. So, do you know who is consistently ranked as one of the best Seahawks of all time? No. Many of the younger folks in the room might think it's Russell Wilson or Marshawn Lynch.
I'm only here
Who's
because
that other
of
guy, Bobby something on the line?
Bobby Wagner.
But this football came to me Sierra mid-1990s. I was at a business meeting in Seattle with a room full of men in suits. There were just a few women there. At the end of the meeting, they gave away a signed Steve Largent football, and guess who won it?
All right.
I would like you to have this football as a reminder, like Steve, that you are one of the greatest team leaders in Everett Public Schools. And now I think some of the other board members might have a few words to say.
Dr. Salzman, you've carried us through, as was been said, uncharted waters, but you've sailed us through those storms, and you've kept us on the path, the course that we've needed to be on. And thank you so much for leading this district.
Well, I mean, it's just, when I first came into the district, you told me I'm all about kids. That's all I want to take care of. If it's not about the kids, I don't want to talk about it. And you've proved that every day that I've known you and every day that I've worked with you, particularly over the pandemic. So we can't think of a better person to have this honor.
Go ahead, Director Mitchell. I saw your mute go off first.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to say that when we hired you, Dr. Saltzman, none of us knew this pandemic was going to come just within a few months. And you have definitely, I think, been an exemplar superintendent for the entire nation. Being the first school district to have a student in the first county and city, to have a patient, to be next door to the first county with a death. And with our closure so fast, our closure so long, you made sure, as Director Nichols just said, the students come first. And with that is how much support you give the staff. So thank you.
And I would echo what all my fellow directors have said. Dr. Saltzman, you are truly a leader among leaders. Your leadership through this public health crisis and beyond has gotten the attention of folks nationwide. And quite frankly, saying that I'm a director for the Everett School Board, the weight of that doesn't come from the position of which I hold. It comes from the position of which you hold amongst your peers and in the community. I cannot thank you enough for saying yes when my fellow directors asked you to come on board. And even without this crisis, you had a vision, that student-centered vision for our district, and we see it play out every day. And we now see the necessity of it because of the crisis that we're in. But that said, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for your vision, your planning, your method of leadership really has put us at the forefront in so many ways, not just academically, but social, emotionally for our kids as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Student representative, anyone wish to to add?
Well, it's been great to have you, and not that you're leaving, but it's been great. And sorry, I didn't have anything prepared. So, but yeah, you have been an amazing director, and I haven't known you for too long since I haven't been on the school board for quite a long time. But the time I've spent with you, it's been great to work along with you.
This goes to the team. This football goes to the team. Every student, they gave their best every day to the highest top. All our students do it, all school systems, and to the team that makes it work every day directly. Thank you. It's not too many times I'm speechless, so I'm a little speechless right now. So thank you so much.
Maybe it doesn't need going up.
No, I'll go forward.
The next item on our agenda is Superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the public. And again, thank you for that recognition, but this work is done by the team that you have every day and the amazing board that we have and the amazing students that we have and parents. So I'm just one of many, so thank you so much. I want to share this evening with the public, and this is to our students and parents. Instagram and everything that's happening across our area and the nation. Students, we love you. We care about you. Don't make this mistake of going on Instagram and doing these threats that are harmless and harmful, because they hurt everybody. And we spend a lot of manpower trying to put these out. So I talk to our community tonight, parents, myself being a parent of 2 students, know what your kids are doing on the internet. Please, know what your kids are doing on the internet. And again, to our students, that one mistake, don't ruin your career over something that's gonna hurt you forever, okay? So take it seriously. You know, there's a motto to be kind, and there's also a motto to be respectful and to be responsive and be responsible. So please, we take this seriously, and we don't want you to ruin your school careers over these things. The next item today is this is to the team of Everett, to the school board, and to everybody that's in this room and others like Carrie Johnson and so forth. Today, the Snohomish Health District came to recognize our school district for the programs and people and policies that promote healthy behavior in Snohomish County. This year, we were recognized by the Snohomish Health District as Preparedness Champion based on our work in support of public health last year. Response to the first student case in the nation, providing immediate space for county testing site, partnering through the pandemic and more. They came by to present the award with 2 of their board members, Jared Mead and Scott Bader. We are grateful for our partnership with the health district, and to the school board and to the team, thank you. And we'll continue to do everything we can to make sure that we do the right thing by our students and community. Well, Saturday was an amazing event. Robotics in action, okay? Took place at Evergreen Middle, and what a robotics tournament. I was impressed with the things that I saw, and I thank you to all the robotic coaches who made this possible. I have to make a shout out tonight, Teresa Thompson of Lowell Elementary School. I met her at 7:45 a.m. at her school, and she had the kids practicing bright and early for the competition. I was quite impressed, and just to see the youngsters and to the parent volunteers that were helping out, amazing. And I always ask the kids this, how is it to be back? They go, great. So that was really exciting, okay? And then we've had our food and toy drives from our youngest learners to our seniors. We have amazing givers. What a great group of students that we have. And this time of year, as our schools and students find ways to be generous to our community, we appreciate the efforts of the food drives and toy drives. And then finally, let's hit the reset button. We're going to close out safely Friday, and we're going to start winter break. That starts December 18th, and we return January 3rd. And I want to remind our students, our families, our staff, and our board, this is a recharge. Take time to be with friends and family and celebrate the great things that are happening in our world today and only going to get better. So from my family to yours, a happy, healthy new year and a fantastic vacation and holiday season. Thank you.
Director Lasane, usually we switch seats after the election.
I'm sorry?
Usually we switch seats right after the election, so you move to the president's spot. Do you want to do that? Or stay where
Switch
you are?
seats for now, or do you want?
No, let's just.
Can we do it next meeting?
Can we
Beginning
do it
next
for the
meeting?
next meeting?
Thank you for asking.
Okay, we'll now move to the next item on our agenda, which is 10.01, which is board comments. The board specifically sets aside this time during the board meeting to, so that our board members have a chance to comment on what things they have done during their time at their liaison schools and the community, and whatever comment they would like to express to their constituents. Who would like to go first in giving board comments? Director Mason.
Mine's brief. I just wanted to follow up regarding the Cascade Food Drive. I had an opportunity to meet some of our National Honor students collecting food at Fred Meyer this past week and chat with them. And it was just so heartening that to see them be able to be back out and collecting food and toys and necessities for our families in our community. These food drives are just very impressive. The amount of student involvement and collection and distribution, it's just such an enormous undertaking and so appreciated by me and our district, but also our community. So, and then lastly, I just want to say happy holidays, and I hope everyone enjoys their break. I don't know if you're like me, but I have, the pandemic has given me a renewed appreciation for time off and time with family. And so I hope you all have a wonderful break.
Director Nichols.
Just wanted to extend a congratulations again to our two board members that were just sworn in tonight, and to our new offices, positions on the board, and again to Dr. Saltzman. And wish everybody here a happy holiday as well.
We'll first do our student rep and then go to the two directors that are on the screen. Student rep, colleagues?
All right. Just want to talk about the food drive at Cascade. It's been going really well. We've collected a lot of food, and I'm also participating in Delivery Day, which is tomorrow, or on Thursday, and it's when we pack up all the food and we deliver it to the houses, which I'm very excited for. So food drive has been going well. And adding on to what Dr. Saltzman said, there has been a lot of threats going on around schools in our area and just any school in general. And I just want students to understand how serious it is and how much it affects your life and the people around you, causing them to be scared. And I just wish people would take it more seriously on social media and be careful with the things they say and post. And it's just something that always needs to be taken into consideration before we post things online.
Director Mincho or Director Berg, which would like to go first?
If it's okay, because I just want to, I think that student voice is so important. So thank you, Bettina. I am I'm not going to break HIPAA, but was at a vaccine clinic on Saturday where I had a dad wearing a elementary school shirt, and I asked if he was staff, and he said, "No, I'm just a parent." I said, "You are not just a parent. You are a parent." And one of his sons bragged about his 5th grade brother who was at one of the Lego robotics competitions, and that's why he wasn't there today. And the dad really was excited that we have such a program for 5th graders. So just appreciate that you had that in your PowerPoint, Dr. Saltzman. And I believe that my nephew, I'm in Florida right now looking at colleges. I am wearing my mask, even though it's rare for others. But I think that my nephew exemplifies a lot of our students who struggled with high school, never thought he would get to college, joined the Army. When we were talking today at lunch, he graduated on Friday with his associate's degree. As a high school student, he never saw himself being a college graduate. That associate's degree, he said he is going to hang on his wall. And right now we're looking at universities where he can transfer to next fall. And he's 23 years old. It does take some people longer. And I just want to have a voice out there for all of our seniors, all of our juniors, freshmen, sophomores, who might not see a path now. There is a path. Just keep going forward. And I want to wish everyone a happy holidays, happy new year, and we will see you in January.
Director Berg.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just have a couple of things. One, I am very excited. Just like our student rep said, things are getting a little bit back to normal. So seeing the food drives and seeing the community participation. I know at Jackson tonight, my daughter was out caroling with the National Honor Society, which is something that we weren't able to do last year. And then the other thing that was really great to hear, it was crazy how excited we all were, but just the announcement of what the spring musical will be, right? There is going to be a spring musical. So things are slowly but surely getting back to normal. And just one last plug, I know Jackson, and I think maybe some of the other schools might be selling some t-shirts as a fundraiser that talk about student mental health and kind of like this is a conversation we need to be having. They're pretty cool shirts. So our family ordered some so we could help support that effort. That said, much like Dr. Saltzman mentioned, the threats are top of mind. The threats are that we're seeing on Instagram are really disconcerting to so many of us as parents and school leaders. One thing I would love to just share with parents is that, and really everyone, there's this notion about nice, and I know the work that we do around equity and around inclusion and around, you know, how to talk to folks and things like that, but what sometimes happens is we see certain families, certain kids, you know, they're so nice. There's no way they could do X, Y, Z. They're so nice. That parent is the nicest parent we've ever seen. So there's no way this could happen. But I just need to say it out loud that nice kids can also have behavioral health problems that we need to address. And when nice kids ask for help, we need to listen. And we need to stop putting that adjective where it doesn't belong, because nice does not absolve folks from nice doesn't make someone perfect. And so we have some of the nicest parents and nicest students and nicest staff that I could ever be blessed to work with. But despite that, sometimes folks are going through things. And so when they ask for help, can you please listen, even if they're nice? And then the last thing I want to talk about is just, and just putting it out there for both the public and of course my colleagues, that I will be introducing a resolution in January. And this is a subject that we talked about in August, just dealing with board terms. And so I've had members of the public who've seen our August meeting ask me if that was actually going to happen. And I just want to say it will. I'm working on that resolution right now. And so we can expect to see it sometime in January. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I would also like to take this time to thank all of our board members and our student rep for your time and your talent that you have brought to the board. The one thing that we all value is the desire for all children to get the best education possible, just so that we can ensure that they succeed in life. Thank you for your dedication and your time to ensure that this work is done. Thank you. And it has been an enormous year for overcoming challenges that have, as Dr. Saltzman has said many times, put a strain on the system. I've been listening. But staff, the teachers, the paras, the custodians, the bus drivers, the librarians, the nurses, the volunteers, the cafeteria workers, the maintenance crews, the IT professionals, and the list goes on. They've done their best to do exceptional work. Thank you for making the system work like clockwork, working towards a well-oiled machine. And if there is a need for oil in some places, you work hard to make it so. Thank you for what you've done in 2021. Take this time now to get some rest, charge your batteries, enjoy your families and the season so that the system can come back to work again for kids. So thank you. Thank you so much. If there's no further questions from the board and the student reps, we'll now move to public comments. I understand we have one speaker online tonight. Jarrett, do you see Mr. Randall Morin?
No speaker tonight.
No speaker? Okay. Are there any other public comments? Dr. Saltzman? No?
No.
Thank you. My computer just went down. We'll now move to the consent agenda. Dr. Saltzman, would you provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Directors. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts, grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes it includes items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received no questions or comments. The consent agenda is presented and published for board approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saltzman. A motion to adopt the consent agenda is now in order.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Nichols to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in new business section of the agenda? Hearing no request, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. The motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We'll now move to the next item, which is item 13.0, strategic progress monitoring. And there's no strategic progress monitoring reports scheduled for this meeting. We'll now move to 14.0, which is fiscal outlook for 2021, 2025. And we will now recognize Mr. Moore as our presenter.
Well, thank you very much, President Lassane, and congratulations, Dr. Saltzman and the rest of the school board. Let me get this started here. Tonight, we just want to spend a moment to share some good news relative to our Easter spending and our fund balance outlook. And so in brevity, I want to cover just a little bit of the information relative to recent activities on Easter since our September update, which was as of August 31st. And then again, based upon the ending fund balance and a look at how we're different from our budget, I'll just give you a snapshot of what we see today in terms of the future. So in terms of the Easter update, first of all, I think we're aware, but this is for our public to understand, that we talk about ESER, which is the elementary and secondary school emergency relief, and we talk about it in the sense of being the federal dollars that we are relying upon, which they are, but it's also important to point out that there are other forms of federal relief at this time. But these three ones are most prevalent and the most talked about in what we do, and that's what the presentation will primarily be focused on tonight. We've also looked at this timeline before, but it's important to point out that there's several things, elements of this that we're trying to communicate to our constituents. And one is that there is a timeline for each of these funds. So in general, what we're trying to do, of course, is utilize ESER 1, then ESER 2, then ESER 3. But probably one of the things I want to emphasize tonight is in the early phases, prior to August 31st, our spending predominantly was on direct code costs, and most significantly, that is in lost state funding and unemployment costs, amongst the other things we had to do to run our business. Since then, you'll see in a few minutes, it's significantly shifted to emotional health and learning recovery, and that's no accident. It is the focus, as you mentioned, in recognition of Dr. Saltzman to emphasize our spending on students, and I think that our plan that we submitted in July does support that as well. So to date, as you look at these, we have spent 100% of ESER 1, nearly 83%. What I mean by spent, I would say claimed and received funding to that degree. And then ESER 3, 16%. I would point out that this 14.9 million to date is all funding. It includes the FEMA that we spent in the first year. It includes some of the smaller grants like the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund for technology and some internet access. So this chart is all funding to date. It's 5.5 million higher than when we talked in September. And we do know that there may be more FEMA resources available. So we'll update this to you in the future. These are expenditures since for the first 3 months of this year, the 5.5 million. And what I want to emphasize is before that, in the previous chart, the pie chart had 53% spent on those direct costs, which includes state funding shortfalls, unemployment, some of those direct costs. There's a chart attached to the agenda item which shows a comparison, and that category is 0 now. So as we mentioned before, we've fully transitioned to focused on instructions based upon what we project going in the future. And then this is a snapshot of the plan. We looked at this chart in July. It's just been updated slightly based upon some pattern changes, but it continues to reflect that 83.5% of our resources are focused on learning and social emotional supports. So as we conclude, these are sort of the dollar amounts of what has been accomplished to date. So we do have ESER 2 about 1.7 million, and that's generally because, as you'll see in our projection, some of the things we thought we would do, we just couldn't hire the staff to do it. So we'll likely move some of the things we plan to do ESER 3 to ESER 2. And going forward, we still have 19.2 million. The 2-year expenditure plan fills out that 19.2 million. But of course, when we get into the budget development process, we'll reassess where we've been and where we're going in that respect. And finally, just keep in mind, there's other grants that will become available. The 100,000 dual language grant that's supporting Emerson, and then the IDEA grant of $1 million that's primarily focused on extended learning opportunities for our special needs students. And so in closing, I would just say that we are completely on track with our expenditure plan for ESER, but also point out per that chart that the ESER funding will expire at the end of 2022-23. At least that's what the plan would suggest. And without any additional federal funding, we do at that point in time need to look to state or local funding increases to sustain all of these supports we put in place during the time. So it's good news knowing that we're on track and that the plan is being followed. And it's important to emphasize to our community that these supports will sunset. So moving just to the general fund snapshot, again, this is a quick look back, having just closed the books and looking at preliminary November numbers. There's a couple things I wanted to point out because I know we're looking at fund balance. In fact, I think a Friday report a while ago provided some comparative analysis with other school districts. But one thing we look at in terms of fund balance is just to remind the board that when the year ends, the fund balance is a percentage of expenditures as you close the book. And the next day, when we start the year, it's likely that the budget has a much higher level expenditure level. And this is the case this year. So as we look to transition, I just want to remind the board that in one day that 11.9% transitions to 10.8. But I also have to point out that we have seen unexpected levels of savings, including vacancies. And I think this is something that we addressed at a meeting a couple of weeks ago. But generally, it is due to staff vacancies, and it is generally focused on using ESSER funds to do the things we need to do. But also, we've improved the fiscal outlook because the state economic outlook is very positive, and so we think that some of the guarded assumptions in there need to be improved. We need to be more optimistic. But again, I want to point out as we look at this next slide here. So what we changed is at the board adopted budget hearing, we anticipated an ending fund balance for this current year of 7.4%. We've elevated that to 9.2%. And after this meeting, as we go forward, I'm showing you a 4-year outlook, but we're going to take a look at the next year a lot more closely before we come back to you in February. So right now, the point being made here is we anticipate 9.2%. We don't expect us to have to initiate reductions. And I think we have the opportunity to make further investments to support the students and focus on the students going forward. And so the overall picture here is that 7.4% has increased to 9.2%. We still believe that at that point in time, kind of that 2023-24 school year is when that state or local revenue increases, or both, will be needed to, especially to sustain some of the federal programs. So I hope that gives you a good end of 2021 snapshot of good news about our fiscal outlook.
Board members, are there any questions that you, and student rep, are there any questions that you have for Mr. Moore?
I have Tracy has one.
I just want to clarify a point.
Should I stop share?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Jeff, for the money that's not spent, and if we still need it once that sunset date, because while things are getting back to some of the way we used to know, everybody knows that we still are in a bit of a crisis with the pandemic, new variants and everything. Have we talked to any of our federal legislators about changing that sunset date? If we have money, we could keep using it?
So
how does that work?
Well, I should point out at the chart, those are the firm dates, but in the statute it says, but you have one more year after that.
Okay.
We're not really in jeopardy there's not a drop deadline. You would just have to carry it over and stipulate it for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. And then some of our things were to purchase things that are being used. Do we have any estimation of what is the word I want to find? That has to be replenished to know exactly for COVID or for an ongoing epidemic, what funding we might need to continue any of the technology, any of the supports. I do not want to cut back on anything, mental health. So do we know the full cost of things, or when will we know the full cost of things that we will need to move forwards that are not supported?
Well, certainly the elements that we are spending today, the technology we're spending today, the connectivity, the mobile hotspots are not something that is necessarily within the capital technology levy, but what you're asking is, yes, absolutely, we need the capital construction and technology levy to support this in the future. But in addition to that, I think a lot of our associations are looking to the state for help with connectivity as an equitable access element. So we are closely tracking to the detail, because they'll be audited, what we're using ESSER funds are for, and technology is no exception to that. So we certainly know what we're spending. I don't have the expertise to decide in the future, and we will with my colleagues under Dr. Salzman, as to what we might need in the following fiscal year. And that's part of the budget development process.
Yeah, and that's what I think that would be most helpful, because I know we've made a lot of changes. So what are changes we've made that need to be permanent, that and that will take all of the leadership and all of the staff to figure out what really is essential, that are improvements. Because I try not to use normal, because I think we have learned so much. And what do we need for the future? So thank you so much.
You bet.
I'd like to piggyback on that one. I mean, technology is the first thing that comes to people's minds, but we've made a lot of changes to our ventilation systems during this particular time. Now, over time, I know that puts a burden on what we planned prior COVID, and then changes that we've had to implement after COVID. There are things like that outside just technology that we need to make sure our legislators, federal as well as state, understand the changes that have been made as a result of COVID moving forward. Like, this cannot stay what it used to be. This is the new, quote, normal moving forward. And these things will cost more in the future.
Very good point.
I have a comment.
Yes.
First, I just want to thank you and your team for a really great presentation. I took some time earlier to review it in detail, because sometimes I find these financial presentations a little overwhelming with the data that's in the slides. And it was just very straightforward and easy to understand where our ESSER money's going. And want to point out that for the public, there is an attachment that gives far more detail than you were able to include. And that was helpful too, to see kind of exactly where the investments are going. So make sure that your folks know that. Great presentation. And that the reflection is that savings aren't always good or controllable. So a lot of our savings right now are coming from not being able to fill positions, which is not what we necessarily want. And I know that that has an impact on fund balance too. So, we had talked about that fund balance, and I know Director Berg had also made some comments, as well as myself. And I found looking at the comparison that you provided was very helpful, because a lot of districts our size are carrying slightly higher fund balances. Some of them have wild fund balances, like the smaller districts that really, the big influx of money. And but that ours was very much appropriately in line for our size of district. And I know you and the whole team is working hard to control that, but it's not always as easy as it seems. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Director Berg or Director Nichols? Berg, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I would love to just comment in just similar vein as Director Mason. And I was looking at it, 100% agree that there are districts that are carrying, a diversity of fund balances. And so ours is not as much of an outlier as I originally thought. But that said, I think coming upon this kind of levy season and really just the season of having fiscal conversations with our voters, I think that it would be great to have a narrative around the, and when I say narrative, a really simple one-page outlook of what the fund balance is and what some of the prospects are, right? The uncertainties, because you laid them out really well in terms of, after this funding goes, we're still committed to certain things. And after this funding goes, we still want to continue with certain programs, and having a robust fund balance kind of leads to that. But I also think just the black and white of it is, you guys have a lot of money in the bank. How are you asking us for more? Right. So, and I know that's a simplistic way of looking at things, but I also think that's the way maybe a common, a person with 2 or 3 jobs sitting at their kitchen table, that might be a common refrain that we hear is, you have a lot of money in the bank and you're asking us for more, and we don't have more in our pockets. We, have inflation, et cetera. So if we could just come up with that simple 1-page, 1-paragraph narrative about why we have the money, what we're going to do with it, and why we need the levies, that would be great.
Great, thank you for the comment.
Director Nichols?
I would just second that, what Director Berg mentioned, because this breakdown's great in that I can see exactly what we're going to lose if we can't advocate at the federal level. So going forward, having that sort of narrative that's simple, like this is what we're going to lose, that's really powerful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd just add to that I think there's always the conversation between helping our constituents and folks understand what we gain from funding, and then sometimes, clarifying what we lose if there is no funding. And it's kind of the same conversation, but put slightly different ways. And sometimes I think helping people understand what we lose when the funding goes away is equally as helpful as the other.
Student rep, do you have any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. I see our next lineup is the legislative priorities. I don't think you need to sit down for that.
Great, thank you very much. Let me put this up here and make sure I minimize it and share screen. Directors Mitchell and Berg, can you see that okay? Okay. So I do appreciate the input that we received at the last meeting, and we have spent some time as a executive cabinet rearranging the wording here. And let me just review to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But I think under the first paragraph, I think that Director Nichols did point out that one of our highest priorities is overall funding of basic education, and that it's not for this 60-day session. It is for, it's until that goal is accomplished. And of course, part of that is our special education funding, which still resolves in this fiscal year to be about 10 million short. The only other change I made in that paragraph after moving that up on top really is to look at the terms. It used to have hold harmless in the second sentence, and now it says cover shortfalls from the COVID impact on funding formulas. So I think that is the two, in essence, changes that you had requested. Is there any other thoughts, or does that accurately represent what was requested?
Directors, any comments? Student rep?
So one thing I'd point out over here in the margin is that clearly we have new officers, so I will correct that and alter that. Also, looking at the second bullet, I think it did have too much in it. I think we all agreed. And so understanding what Director Nichols again was saying is much of that falls under the social emotional needs. So this is simplified. And also, I would point out that down below, we had sort of a long sentence, and it's been broken into two sentences here. One time, federal investments will end, but needs such as early learning, early childhood education, and extended day and summer school will continue. And then the next sentence is really also, there is a continued need for behavior specialists, social workers, and online support services, which is what you commented to in the detail, which we demonstrate has a lot of funding that we have focused on that. So is there anything a part of that second paragraph that, or does that hit the mark? I see.
Question. I think sometimes but needs I'm not an English expert by any stretch of the imagination. Is there a comma after that? Because now there's a list.
You know, let me confirm that.
Yeah, that's just it's a nitpicky thing, but if somebody that knows English better than me, please. Or grammar, that's grammar, not English.
I'll address that.
Thank you.
So, and then the final paragraph really provided more detail, was requested, and so we provided some specifics within that paragraph. And then finally, down below, we wanted a firmer closing statement. And so the closing statement is, now is the time to make significant investments to fully fund basic education and vital student supports established with federal dollars. So having made those changes, we present this to you for approval tonight.
Directors, any comments? Thank you very much. I think so.
I will stop share.
I think it's much more succinct. It's much easier to read. I appreciate the time you folks put into it. Not that it's a formatting thing and it makes no difference whatsoever. That final statement is so powerful, I'm wondering if we shouldn't move it to the top, but you know, the fact that it's a different color and all that fun stuff will draw the eye to it anyway, so not a big deal, but thank you for acting on that feedback.
You're welcome.
Yes, Director Mitchell,
I just want to say I really like that third paragraph being very specific to what our students need for equity with what should be funded fully. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'd like to thank my colleagues. It was a team effort to get the right language in the right way. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we need an approval? Do we need to vote on it and say it's approved, or have you?
We have done so in the past,
Okay.
not as a official form, but as a common endorsement of the priorities.
And board members, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second for approval?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please respond by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. The approval has been granted. Thank you very much.
Madam
Point of
Chair,
order.
a point of, thank you.
Yeah, point of order. I think we also need to ask for an abstention. Make
Oh.
sure if there's a vote there.
There, that's true. Is there an abstention on the motion?
Madam Chair, I abstain.
Yes. We have approved with one abstention on this motion. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business. It is policy 3321, student publication, proposed revision, first reading. And will Mr. Fleckenstein please come up?
Well, good evening. And tonight, proposed revisions to policy 3221, student publications, are to clarify that prohibitions on student speech are limited to acts that incite rather than advocate the violation of law. This clarification and the revised language presented this evening reflects the standards specified in the Washington New Voices Act. Please recall that on March 22nd of 2018, Governor Jay Inslee signed Substitute Senate Bill 5064 into law, ensuring that student journalists in public K-12 schools and public institutions of higher education participating in school-sponsored media are free to determine the news, opinion, feature, and advertising content. Revisions to policy 3221, student publications, have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's executive cabinet prior to tonight's meeting. And as you can see here on the screen, the revisions to policy reflect that change of just one word.
Are there any questions? We will therefore move this to second reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item is section 17.0 is upcoming agenda items. Dr. Saltzman, what's being planned for our next upcoming agenda items and meetings?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors and the public. 16.0 regular meeting on January 11th, 2022. Let's mark that, 2022. Okay, and at that meeting, the following will occur. Policy 3221, student publication, second reading. School board recognition. Strategic initiative work sessions preview. Instructional review summary. November financial report, and the board annual regular meeting schedule for 2022-2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saltzman. Okay, we're moving quickly through this now. We'll now move to the next item on our agenda. Guess what that is? Section 18.0, which is adjournment. I must say, this has been a very quick meeting, and I really appreciate everybody's time and effort they placed in this. And thank you for the great presentations. They were very concise and very direct and very good. Appreciate that. That concludes the business scheduled to come before the Board of Directors during this meeting. Guess what? This meeting is, I see everybody picking up everything, getting ready to walk out. Adjourn. Have a happy holiday.